Hi, Growth Track team. I am thrilled to be able to spend some time with you. And we really wanted to just give you a sense of what to expect for step one. And we'll have some other videos for the other steps as we start really a behind the scenes launch of the Growth Track Weekend experience. If you're watching this, you're most likely a host. Maybe you are part of the Growth Track team, but I'm excited to serve alongside you. And the campus teams have been sharing just who you are and how excited they are to have you in these roles. So I hope that this provides you an overview of what to expect and some ways that we are hoping to equip you and give you some, I'll call it a roadmap of how step one is going to work. So first and foremost, let's talk about the Growth Track team roles. I think the most important piece to understand is that we, as the team, carry the vision for what growing looks like. So the Know God, Find Freedom, Discover Your Purpose, and Make a Difference. We carry the vision for those 4 steps as the spiritual journey. And we carry the vision for how the Growth Track Weekend experience works, what its goals are, what it's designed to do, and ultimately being the connector to help people take next steps. One of the most important things to remember that I've had to think a lot about this is that what does a host look like, and how do they operate in that space, and what does it feel like to the guest? And when I think about a Growth Track host, what I feel like is one of the most important pieces is that we have the heart of facilitators. So we are both, and when I say facilitator, that means facilitating not only the content, but also facilitating what it looks like to take a next step out of each of these weeks. So we are connectors, but I love this idea of being a facilitator in both of those spaces. So with that heart in mind, really holding the vision for what the spiritual journey looks like through those 4 steps throughout our lifetime, and then what the Growth Track Weekend experience is designed to do, those pieces all fit together to create a Growth Track team that is really geared towards helping guests grow and take their next step. When I think about the Growth Track Weekend experience, and I hope you heard this as part of you stepping into these roles, is that Growth Track is designed to teach people about the spiritual journey, and Ben really carries the weight of that teaching, and then to help them take a first couple steps into discovering their purpose. So as we look at step 1, keep all of that in mind. And that's partly why we're hoping that as a Growth Track team, host, administrator, table leader, that you're able to serve for 1 month. Most people will complete Growth Track in a month time. And while we know that people will be in and out, they'll be on-ramping and off-ramping, our hope is that through providing consistent teams, that the real connection and relationship will start to be built there with the campus and with you, who really ultimately represents the team and the church. So what a privilege we have. So moving on to how we hope to equip you through this. The very first thing is that we have program plans that are built. These are in a system called Planning Center, and if you're familiar with it, great. If not, your campus team will walk you through how to get your hands on these. I'm going to look at mine real quick so that I have a chance to walk you through a little bit of it. I think one of the important things to remember when you're looking at these program plans is the way that they're built is giving you some details about setup and some of the supplies that you will need. And then there's some very specific sections that are scripting. When you look at step 1, at the very top, that is where the supplies are listed. So here's the good news. There's not very many of them. You'll need a workbook, You Matter pens, the Next Steps card coming out of Growth Track, and please be sure and use each of these pieces. And then we'll have Bibles as well. Now for September, we may not have Bibles because most people going through are already deeply connected and you are part of our launch group. And the other piece is that we will not host baptism off of week 1 in September. That will start in October, and we'll pick up with some training and just equipping as we step into that. But we're going to stay just in September for now. So those are the supplies that your campus team has and will have for you. And then you'll notice that it starts, the program plan continues with what does it feel like and look like when guests arrive. Most of you are familiar with the guest principles and really setting a tone of you matter from the time someone walks in the door until the time that they walk back out and beyond. We'll talk about that. So there's a few notes there about that. And then when it gets to welcome, that's where there's 2 sections to this. The welcome has both scripting and also parts that are more sort of the fill-in of what's happening in between the script. So you'll see what I mean, where the script is welcome to step 1 of Cedar Creek Growth Track. We're so glad you came. And then where the dashes are is where you get to fill in your personality and bring your own uniqueness really to the step experience here. And the other piece for me is that you're going to breathe life into this. You ultimately are going to help people connect. You are the facilitator and host. And so these are the spaces where you can introduce yourself. There's opportunity for the campus pastor to do that. So these areas aren't specifically scripted because they have some flexibility. When it comes to the script itself, my encouragement to you would be to stick to it as much as you can. For some of you, that is, you'll read it through a couple times and be able to capture all the heart of it. But for others, it may be that you'll have to follow it a little bit more closely. Certainly not word for word. There's nothing, no idea like that. But I put these scripts here so that it can help to one, it's been helpful for me because it's teaching me and helping me to see what it looks like to facilitate this. But at the same time, it helps us to have very common and consistent language. So that's why some of the things in here, and I think you'll pick up on the phrasing, is what we've been very intentional about building around Growth Track and also then the Growth Track weekend experience. So you'll see timing marks through here about what we think it'll take on each of these pieces. And there's also a link to Ben's video. Our hope is that you have a chance to review these, to watch the video, to really sit in this content for a little bit as you prepare to facilitate step 1 of the Growth Track weekend experience. Again, we're not going to do baptism, but you'll notice at the end of this program plan, we will be emailing a survey link to everyone who has attended so that we can start to get feedback and just understand ways that we can make it better. Again, these are prototypes. If I didn't say that before, I should have, but they are what I would call it about 75%. We know that there is room for us to grow, and that's part of what we are going to work together on as a team and learn from each other. So we'll capture that feedback in a survey. At the same time, if you get some feedback right afterwards, feel free to share that with the campus team so that we can capture that and learn from it, so that by the time we get to January, we are at 100% and feeling like this is solid and something that will have a longer shelf life. These videos are intended to really just last for a short amount of time, and we're going to be continuing to move in that direction of redoing them and drafting them and then having those finals in January. So that's kind of how this is developing and rolling out. And I think the other thing that I would just encourage you to keep in mind is that when you're checking people in, it's important that they have name tags so that they can connect and talk with each other, and so that you can call them by name. I think it's also crucial that as a follow-up piece that we commit to praying for people by name. This is a huge part of where we'd like to move, and the culture of prayer alongside Growth Track and alongside the spiritual journey that we're also very excited about is that we have the privilege of praying for people by name. So that might be a kind of big list at this stage in the game, but I hope that you'll take that part to heart. And even if it's just one day over the week, to just pray over every single person by name or break it up if that's easier for you. The other thing to keep in mind is that these September steps and weekend experiences may have more people in them than we would ever really anticipate on a typical weekend. So you may find that as a team, you are working with a large group in September and October. And as we start to move and shift on this, maybe those groups will stay large, but more often than not, you might be sitting around a round table with a handful of people and having and just an opportunity to connect with them personally. So this is where we're going to all have to be adaptable, and we could walk in and one day it could be a very large group, and then the next time we're there it could be a much smaller group. So as a facilitator, that's part of the being flexible, being able to connect, whether it's a large group or a small group, and you'll continue to work with your campus staff and team to identify the challenges that come up, to celebrate together, and we're going to learn a lot, I think, as we go. So I want to check my notes. I think that that's all I had for you. I wanted to make sure that, let's see, I think that's it. Let us know if you have any questions, if there's any way that we can help, if there's things that you feel like, had I known this, that will be very helpful to us as well. And thank you. Thank you for going first. Your voice matters. We're so appreciative that you are on the journey with us. And most importantly, I hope that it has resonated with you just in your own heart. The more that this journey is personal for you, that you can tell about the things that God walked you through, the things that you experienced that reflect know God, find freedom, discover your purpose, and make a difference. The more that that's alive for you, the more it will become alive for the people who walk through Growth Track with you. So what an incredible privilege we have. Thank you so much.